This podcast is recorded at the Zone Gym studio.
You're listening to the Raw Reality Podcast hosted by Tori Story and Fit with Lily. This episode is sponsored by FODBODS. Use code RAW15 for 15% off all products at fodbods.com.
Hello guys and welcome back. We are lucky enough to have another episode with Kris Byrnes. We did one last year and you all loved it so much, and today we want to speak about shadow work. But for those that haven't listened to that episode yet, go back, listen to it first, and then come to this one. But Kris is a master neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, coach who's had a business inside out coaching for 2 years, focusing on uncovering your limiting beliefs, taking radical responsibility for your life path, and tapping into your unconscious desires to reignite your fire. She's also certified in emotional change therapy and hypnosis, and also a mama of 2. Welcome.
Thanks, babe. Beautiful intro. Thank
No
you.
worries. She currently has Ziggy on her lap.
I do.
Ziggy's back in the studio.
Dying.
He's very happy right now.
Hello, baby.
So if you hear any talking, it's Ziggy through the mic.
Chris to Ziggy, because we're obsessed with each other. Hello.
How are we feeling?
We're good. I'm so good. Ready for this chat. I feel like
Yeah.
we're going to dive, babes. Like, I was thinking about it on the way here and I was like, fuck, this could go raucous.
I'm ready.
I'm excited. Well, as we've said, we want to really dive into shadow work because I feel like in the coaching industry, it's been very much put on a pedestal because of like how great it can be. Can we just start with what is shadow work?
Yeah, so it's the parts of ourselves that we don't want to actually see. We avoid it, and we avoid that by playing out incorrect behaviours and self-sabotage, people-pleasing, all of those negative limiting beliefs and negative behaviours that play out in our everyday lives, rather than holding ourselves and witnessing ourselves in our deepest core wounds and actually owning that part of ourselves. So something I am really, really passionate about and good at within myself in terms of how far I am on my self-development journey is that I can flex the muscle of neutrality, which we've talked about in our past episode, but I'm also really great at owning who I am. So yeah, I'm selfish. And when I say that, a lot of people have a fear around being selfish. I'm like, of course I am. I have to be. If I'm not selfish, I do not have boundaries. If I'm not selfish, my marriage suffers. If I'm not selfish, my kids suffer. If I'm not selfish, I don't deliver high-level containers for women in my coaching. So this me selfish is a label I've in the past avoided and ran away from and like feared being selfish because it's such a negative label. But in turn, that pattern has played out in my everyday life as being selfless. So wearing a badge of honor because I did everything for everyone. Yay for me. Who does that celebrate? Absolutely fucking no one. Where does that get me? Nowhere. What gets me places is being audacious and selfish and getting what I want. And that sounds full on for some because you're not there yet, and that's okay. But know that you can be there and you can own that part of yourself in a really healthy way that doesn't make you a bad person. It actually makes you a person that gets what she wants because she knows she deserves it.
Yeah, and I think, like, for example, the word selfish is such a stigma around it that it's a negative behavior.
Yeah.
And it's like almost actually use those things that it's a good behavior. And it's identifying what almost like society is deemed as bad as no, you can actually turn it into a positive, which you've done.
Yes, absolutely. And like all behaviors can have a negative label, right? And they can also have a really positive one. So it's like anger, I think we've talked about it in the past. I know I have on my own podcast, is actually a really healthy emotion. There's nothing wrong with anger. It's when you create the pattern or the cooked behaviors that play out in your anger that you don't take ownership for. And that can look like violence, that can look like toxic language, that can look like all that shitty behavior, right? But anger, if you look at the emotion itself, you can simply choose to be angry, hold space for yourself in that, witness yourself in that, and move through it. Like that's a choice to hold it.
I love that because as a kid, I feel like I was not an angry kid, but like I would get heated real quick. And my reaction, and I still do this with Jackson, is like I'll hit. Like as a kid, I was always hitting. So if he ticks me off, I would just hit him.
Oh, it's an inner child thing.
Yeah. And so I think like because I was always told off for it, now I'm just like, well, if I get angry and I get like aggressive, it's such a bad thing. And I'm like, why don't I just like, being angry is fine, but let's just not be aggressive and just like figure out why I'm angry, which is just so interesting because I literally did it last night because he came up and like did something to me and I turned around and just whacked him because I was like,
yeah.
And
don't
then it's
annoy
such
me.
a, like, a reactive behavior. Like as soon as you hit him, you're probably like, shit, sorry, didn't mean that. But
and
like,
I know, like,
it's
he can
all
handle it.
built
Like,
up.
he's tough. He's got 2 brothers. Like, it's nothing he can't handle.
Yeah.
But it's just
He's
like,
used to
I'll
it.
just turn around and whack. Like,
Yeah, but
and
it's
I've
also
always
like
done it.
uncalled for too. Like
Yeah.
in the sense of if he's not expecting that or he doesn't have that awareness of you in the relationship, him receiving that, like for me, if my husband was just going whack every time he was pissed off, I'd be like, whoa, dude, like calm down. That's not okay. Or if I was doing that to him, he'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like it's a bit of a shock, right? If you're not used to that sort of thing. When I was younger, I was assaulted by 2 women, 2 separate occasions, 2 separate stories to that. That's a whole other chapter of life, right? But within that, prior to that, I was super confident, super cocky. Would I have ever hurt anyone with my hands? Absolutely not. Never in a million years. But I always had like a viper tongue, you could say, like keyboard warrior. I was like, yeah, I can use my words. I'll fire off. I'm good. But after those 2 events, they were quite traumatizing, and I took a big step back. And I couldn't handle any form of conflict at all. And I still work through this trigger and this wound because it exists in me, right? Where there is this fear of conflict and fear of trauma. And my kids, when they fight, so when they hit each other, I am so triggered, I will go from 0 to 100. And I'm really working on that and through that because that's something that, like my little kids specifically say, if my son raises his hand to my daughter, I'm just like, whoa, like you're in trouble, big trouble, man, like not okay. And I'll kind of lose it in the sense of go a bit harder than I normally would for mistakes they make in life. So I'm still unlearning and reapplying new behaviors. But yeah, it can play out, like your traumas and your big wounds can definitely play out, especially from childhood, right? And they can appear as your shadows, but it's shadow work for a reason. You can't see it until you see it.
That's so interesting.
Can you share a personal experience where you felt shadow work led to like a significant piece of growth in your own journey?
Absolutely. It's radical responsibility and self-honesty. So I started being honest and stopped lying to myself and telling myself the fucking porcupines of why I'm not getting what I want. I stopped relying on manifesting and affirmations to get me where I want to be. I started acting like I still needed the accountability with myself to drive forward and move the needle. Like I love manifesting. I'm all about it, here for it. I'm a big believer. I'm passionate on speaking to it. But you are not going to manifest your life by simply saying in front of the mirror, I want $1 million. I want $1 million. Like you've actually got to do the work. You've actually got to create a system and a strategy in your business or in your life to get what you want. Same with any macro goal. You can't just be relying on these self-affirmation. And I was relying on the podcast, listening to a podcast, reading a book, doing the micro habits, the daily breath work and the things to just expect that's going to get me what I want. Doesn't work that way.
That's what everyone says about getting, let's say, for example, a fitness coach. It's like, okay, I got the coach. Why aren't I getting results? Okay, you're actually doing the work. You're doing what they are telling you to do. But majority of the time, it's like, oh, well, I've got a coach. Why aren't any changes being made? Like you've actually got to do the work, and getting a coach is just like that next level to help you go that one step further.
Absolutely. 100%.
You mentioned in our past episode how much you love journaling. And obviously there's forms of like journaling, meditation. What would you say is the best form for you personally, and then maybe what you use with your clients to get deep into the shadow work?
Great. So this is a sneaky little plug, but I have a free shadow work introduction ebook that I created off the back of me learning and uncovering the parts and patterns and basically the system of codes, right, where I had been doing this work on myself. I'd stopped doing the daily gratitude journal essentially, which is something that I don't knock, like 100%, be grateful for everything and map it out and be really positive. Positive language is so healthy for your unconscious mind. I'm a big believer in that. But I stopped that because it wasn't getting me the results that I needed within myself and within my personal growth journey. So I started doing journal prompts that were a little more thought-provoking, a little bit wide. Like one of them, there's 50 journal prompts in this ebook, right? And alongside that, it's an intro. So it just maps out everything that I'm basically saying right now about shadow work. It gives you a clear understanding of what it is, where it stems from, and how you can embody it in your life. It's very short, sharp. I didn't want to stuff around with a big, long thing for anyone to read for ages, but it's a very short ebook. And then there's 50 shadow work journal prompts. So it's like you can get started on this journey, and they're very like radical responsibility questions, very self-honesty, like strap in, like get ready to be really sure and honest with yourself. Because what's interesting is how often people will lie to themselves. Like will tell
They
you
kind of write what they want to hear.
yeah, you'll write with the version of yourself that you want other people to see, like just in case, like I'm going to do this healthy habit, I'm going to do this shadow work thing because this is the next thing on my development journey to tick off my list, to say that I'm a good girl, to say that I got it, I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm evolving and I'm this emotionally intelligent high level woman because I ticked the box. But did you actually answer the question? Did you actually tell the
I
truth?
always think about that because I was reading through all of like the journal prompts because I downloaded it for myself the other day.
yay.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh, what? Because Tori and I was speaking about this morning, like, she was like, okay, what do you think that, let's say like you brought the shadow to Kris, like what would you bring? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I literally can't think of anything. So I feel like that's why those journal prompts are so important to actually unpack that unconscious part of you to get deeper into actually unraveling the true shadow.
Can I provoke you here for a second?
I'm ready.
You always actually already know. It's just fear that's the surface on top because you can be so afraid of actually showing who you are underneath the layers of the masks. So if I said 3, 2, 1, what's your answer, and asked you a question, you'd give me like if I was like gun to your head, what's the answer? You'd be like, oh my God, here's the answer. It's like you flip a coin and you know the answer. We actually always unconsciously know what we want, but we're terrified and we layer it. It could be 30 layers on top of this, right? Like this isn't something that I think that you're actually aware of right now, but you do already know the answer to that. It's in there, but you've just got to trust yourself and build that self-trust to get to the information as such about you, because our ego, which is our concept of self, it wants us to stay small. It wants us to stay safe. It wants us to be seen in a light where everyone likes us, everyone's happy, we're the good girl, we get our tick list. At the end of the day, like it's a badge of honor to be loved, right, by everyone and have no one challenge our thoughts or challenge our behaviors. But when you start calling out your own self, that's where the results are going to happen for you. Said with love.
Yeah.
With journaling, obviously prompts play like a huge role. How do you suggest to get deep in journaling? Like I know you've got prompts, but like I find like I've been journaling for years and I go through waves where some days it's like really deep, but I have to be like in my feels.
Yep.
And I find like I want to do it, but I kind of just sit there and I'm like blank mind.
Yeah, great. So journaling, if we strip it back to what is it actually, it's simply reflecting. So I feel like there's a lot of pressure that we've put on ourselves in the development space to sit with a pen on the beach, relax, do a meditation, and then you can journal and open up your unconscious. Blah. Like it's all pink and fluffy, and it doesn't have to look that way. For me, sometimes my journaling for the day is in the shower for 60 seconds. I'm like, what was good about today? What could I do better today? What was I not accountable today? Where did I not hit my goals? Like it's as simple, like chunk down a list of questions. I answer to myself in the shower. I don't write it down. I just bring it to my awareness. It can be literally driving the car. You stop at a red light and you're like, what can I be great at today? Or what did I fuck up that I'm not currently aware of and not taking responsibility for? So whatever those questions are in that ebook, they're fantastic. And I mean, take a photo of it in your phone and answer it at any given point in the day. It doesn't have to look like the pretty picture story of journaling, and it can look like that because that's fucking great when you're in that feel, right? I find it depends on my cycle as well, like where I'm at. If I want to sit and write, writing the interview cards for my podcast recordings this week, my handwriting is so bad I can't read it because I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to sit and write. Like I'm not in the fields for my journaling this week, but that doesn't mean to say that next week I won't be.
My friend is always like, she's into meditation, she's into all of that area. And she told me a really good technique to journal because I was like, I have so many thoughts and to get it out, I'm going to need to like write so many and I'm like so slow and I want to get to this thought, but I'm still on this thought. She was like, you actually don't even necessarily need to write like actual letters. She's like, just scribble. And she's like, just scribble your thoughts and like it feels like you're writing and getting it out and you know what you're saying to that piece of paper, but it's like you said, it's the action of actually reflecting and not what you're actually writing down. So I was like, oh, that's actually a really good way to put it because writing takes me forever and I'm over it. So it's like scribbling and you're still getting those thoughts out.
And it's a big part of like the self-reflection questions is a lot about projection, right? So it's mirror, mirror. So I can ask you girls right now, what's one thing that you saw recently in another woman where you're like, ugh, yuck. Find a thing. Shit. Can be anything. I'll give an example, right? So when I was younger, I saw this woman, she had these big, beautiful fake boobs. She was fucking tan, blonde, long hair. She looked like a Barbie doll walking down the street and she was in like very promiscuous clothing. And I was just like, fuck, she looks gross. Like, ew, that's disgusting. Who wears that? Who thinks of themselves so highly to wear that down the street? That mirror was her simply holding up the things that I'm envious of. I don't have that level of confidence to own who I am, to walk down a street and not be worried about what one single person thinks. That was a me issue. That was my wound. So shadow work is really that provoking of the mirror reflection back to you of what you actually envy. And that's not, I don't want to be that woman. That's not to say that was my goal, but it was showing me the part of me that I need to work through. I need to work on my confidence. I need to work on my self-trust, my self-love. That was never about her. It was always about me.
That's a very common thing in our friendship group. I think we always speak about is like projection. So it's like, for example, I know Tori always speaks about it, but her Pilates instructor, she would come in, be so loud, be like the center of attention, and Tori used to be like, whoa, like, what's happening here? Yeah. And then now she's like fallen into that, and Tori's like a way more confident person, can be authentic to herself, and now she's that person in the middle of the room. So it's like that projection you have on others is actually just what not you're showing yourself.
Yeah, love that so much.
What I wanted to ask, so like obviously with all of this being said, it is obviously can be scary for people to start. What are some like actionable steps for someone listening to this going, where do I even begin?
Just go to the website and download the shadow work program. It's free. You've got no excuse. Don't, if you want to avoid your shadows, sure, stay in the fluff, stay in the pink and the fluffy and the easy. That's fine. And not to say that doing the inner work is easy at any level, but this is the level that takes you to that next step where you can't avoid your shit. You actually can't be a victim. You actually can't sit in self-sabotage. You actually can't stay in people-pleasing because your self-awareness goes from 0 to 20. Like you have the tools and resources then to apply this in your life. And I think, it's scary. Like there's a reason why not everyone's doing it because no one's ready yet. But if you are ready to start taking action on that, there is a free resource that you can gain and to start that process. And just start with one question a week. Doesn't have to be all of them at once. I don't expect everyone, like I've got a mentality where you don't have to go all at once. The all-in mentality doesn't apply here. It's start with this next action, start with this next step. It could be today you download the program and you read it and you go, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that sounds cool. And then the next Monday you're like, cool, I'm going to set some time aside. I'm going to answer a question in the journal. And if it's not coming out and you're not writing it out, then let's sit and talk about it, like actually reflect and say it out loud. It doesn't have to be handwritten. So I just think strip it back to basic. Don't overcomplicate it. Like it doesn't have to be hard. It can actually be simple.
You said before that ego is probably one of the biggest things that gets in the way of shadow work. How do people overcome that barrier of their ego? Is that, like we spoke about last episode, like self-awareness? Is that actually going deep into that self-journaling and self-prompting? Like how do you actually recognize that your ego is holding you back? Because a lot of listeners will be like, oh no, well that's not me. But in reality, it actually is. How do you get through to your clients that it actually is them?
Yeah, I think in my journey of like emotional intelligence and growth, I feel like the thing with ego is it's actually a great thing to have because everyone's got ego. Of course I want people to see me in a particular way, but I've also been able to hold myself to a standard where I allow people to see me in a way that they might not like as well. And that's okay. So I've given myself the evidence essentially that I have had things where people pull back or people don't like what I say or someone might judge me for something or you see someone look you up and down. I went somewhere a couple months ago and this woman, no joke, looked me from here up and back down again. I was like, are you real? Like, is that real life? Did that just happen? Did anyone else see that? Like, is that okay? And that was so triggering to me. But I recognized that, you know, in that moment, that was a her wound and that was her shadow but also my ego was sitting here in this going, oh my God, someone's judging me. Someone didn't like me. Like, what does that even mean? And my defense mechanism was like, is everything okay? Like, that's not appropriate. That's really rude. But really, it was her processing information in her brain and maybe she liked what I had on. I don't know. I didn't fucking ask her.
True. You don't actually know what she's thinking. She might have been like, oh, wow, really like shoes. Oh, wow, that matches her top.
Yeah.
Instead, you went straight to the negative.
Exactly. And our unconscious wants to play that out, right? So my ego also wants me to play that out where it's negative and I can create a problem and create a challenge and hate myself and be mean to myself that day because that person looked me up and down rather than being like, oh, she must like my shoes and walk away. Yeah. Right? So it's building that evidence, I think.
FODBODS is an Aussie company founded by Vanessa. She spent years suffering from gut issues, feeling like everything she ate made her bloated. There was a lot of anxiety around food. She wanted to create healthy snacks from 100% natural ingredients that not only taste amazing, but are completely gut friendly.
FODBODs are 100% natural, plant-based, gluten-free, and their protein bars are the only Monash certified low FODMAP ones in the world.
Their products are dietitian formulated and have amazing macros packed with protein, fiber, and healthy fats to keep you full for long.
The best part is that FODBOD tastes incredible, like real food. Many people say, I don't normally like protein bars, but FODBODs are different.
You guys know how busy Tori and I have been lately, and Papa Macros have been a time saver. They are a meal prep company that delivers ready-to-go meals straight to your door.
One thing that we love most is their clean ingredients, not using any seed oils or preservatives, which can be common amongst ready-to-go meals. The macros are incredible and they have over 70 meals on the menu with different categories to fit your current goals.
Lucky for you, we have partnered with Papa Macros, so if you're struggling with meal prep, poor on time, or just wanting to switch it up, they are the perfect addition to your weekly plan. Just use code RAWREALITY for a discount on your next order. And you'll never get tired of eating the same meals as they update their menu every month, so the variety is never ending. We hope you enjoy.
I really, really want to go into some coaching, I guess you'd say. Now, we both have struggled to think of something. I feel like I have something, whether or not it's limiting belief. I feel like it's more of a limiting belief, but like unpack it as you will. Mine surrounds money.
Right.
Growing up was just my mum and I, single mum, working her ass off to support me, but her older kids as well. And then my dad also living interstate, having other kids, other wives, like not at once, multiple wives.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just always like, we are living on paycheck to paycheck, eating the bare minimum, like was always just like restricted, never went without. So I feel like I have this restriction around money because this is the last 2 years has been the first time, maybe 3 years, where I've like fully supported myself. I've not had to lean on my parents for any money, which I've absolutely loved. But I feel like I have this conflicting moments where I'm like, I'm earning great money. I'm saving somewhat, but I struggle to save because I'm like, well, I have money. I can spend it on what I want and not what like my parents can let me have. So then I'm not saving as much as I could. Jackson gets angry at me because I'm spending stupid money. And it's just like this whole thing. And I feel like I have this limiting belief around I have a limit and I can't get above that limit.
It's a dopamine hit. So you're just doing it to get a hit. So you're externalizing validation to seek worthiness in the thing. So it's like, oh, I get this pretty new top. Cool. That's great. I can have that now, so I'm worthy. Because in the past, I have evidence if I didn't have the thing, I didn't feel good enough. Let's say at school someone had a cool shirt on that you wanted, a brand shirt, which is something that I went through as well. And I wanted it and I didn't feel good enough at high school because I didn't have the cool brand name things. So when I buy something, it's like, oh, little reward. It's like, oh, I'm good enough now because I have the thing that once I couldn't have. So there's that evidence or that inner child essentially. And this could have started when you were 6 years old. I was raised by a single mum as well, and she did fucking struggle. This was repeated over and over and over again in my household. We can't afford. No, we can't afford that. No, you can't have that. No, I don't have money for that. So like there's, I don't know if you guys remember this, but again, I'm 7 years older. I think I'm older than you guys. And there was this brand of like Billabong and Roxy. Yeah, they were surf shop brands. That was so fucking cool. Every cool kid had them. And then mum would get Mambo, which is like best and less. And I was just like, every year for Christmas, we get a fucking Mambo something, or shoe, shirt, pencil case. And I'm just like, what? This is mortifying. So I always had that evidence of we can't have because we don't have money. So now when I have money, I'm like, oh, I'll get this, I'll get that, I'll get this, I'll get that. And that's it, it's a dopamine hit for you. So now that you have that awareness of, oh, I'm chasing something, same way people chase drugs, right? And that's not to say you're drug addict. But like people chase drugs, sex, porn, fucking alcohol, whatever the thing is that people are chasing for that escapism and that validation externally. So externalizing that worthiness allows you not to actually go inward on yourself and own who you are and own your worth. So if you can think about the next thing that you potentially want, do you want it because you feel that you deserve to have everything you want, or do you want it because you're scared if you don't get it, then you might not look a certain way or be a certain version of yourself, and if you're not that version of yourself, people won't like you?
It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think what I think about is like, because I'm at a stage now where I can afford the things that I want, and I'm like, well, money just comes back. And it's like, well, I'm trying to save to buy a house and then go on a holiday, which are the things that I want to do. But it's like, yeah, probably the quick things that I can just buy and be like happy with. But then it's like, well, I could have just saved that $200 on those shoes and put it towards America or the house deposit, like whatever it is.
I think you also need to remember that you have had such a structured life, like in terms of your career and how you grew up and the training regime and the structure and the daily, like your days do not look how my days have ever looked, right? And now as like a coach and doing what you do now, you are still regimed in structure. Like there's still so much routine there. There's no escaping the routine or the picture perfect to-do list essentially, right, that I can perceive from my lens.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that's wrong or bad. That's just to say you're not going and bendering on the weekend. You're not going and spending big money on like gambling or anything like that. Like this.
That's the other thing we always say. We're like, we're not buying drugs and we're not buying alcohol every weekend. It's like, well, we can have this thing.
You are externalizing worth by simply having that little dopamine hit because that's the thing that works for your life, and it's you've made it acceptable and justifiable because in the past you couldn't have that. So it allows you to feel that worthiness piece when you have all the things. And I think there is nothing wrong with that, but it's also a problem that you're aware of because it means that you're not getting the savings going up faster. You're not getting the house that you want faster. You're not getting actually what you want. So you're sabotaging by externally validating and externally chasing that dopamine hit for the next thing that you can buy. Like when you see the thing that you want, let's say you saw a jacket last night at the shops and you're like, oh, it's discounted 20%. That means it's way cheaper than what it was, but it's still $400. And that means I was going to put $400 in the savings, but no, I'll just spend on the jacket. You're just sabotaging your own growth. Like you're cock blocking yourself. Simple as that. So if you can create a system of codes where it's like, this is the money that I get to spend, like a budget, this is what I would recommend to a client. If they came to me with this is the budget that you've got to go and spend on yourself every month. You do not go against it. And some months you will not get what you want, but you'll also save money.
Yeah. I think that's like the actual thing is like having money that you actually can spend and then saving. So it's like, let's say you transfer yourself like a certain amount a month or a week and it's like, I'm actually allowed to spend every single cent of that, but then this other part I'm saving.
Yeah. And I think because my income changes every single month and I'm like, it's not like I earn the same amount to then go, okay, this is the amount that I save, this is the amount that I spend. And it's just kind of like every month is just so different.
Yeah. Well,
and then I'd have necessarily have control over that. So then, I just feel like it's
self-sabotage at its finest though, right? Like you're not getting to put away the savings to get the thing that you want, the macro goal. So the micro habits will always support the macro goal. And if that's what you actually want within the next 12 months, 2 years, whatever the timeline is that you're giving yourself, are you creating things to put in place to ensure and guarantee you have it? Or are you putting things in place to ensure that it takes that little bit longer? And then I would ask or invite you to sit with the question, how bad do you actually want it? Are you ready to buy the house? Is that something that you can go, maybe in 5 years we'll do it, not 2? Maybe I don't actually want it as bad as I once thought I did, and that's just something to reflect with. And I think that when Jackson's been like, don't spend this or don't spend that, you feel that authority of being like, no, it's my money. I get to spend what I want. Like you're putting you're a teenager and you're like, I don't want to do what you say.
And it's like my mum being like, no, we don't have money, don't spend it.
Yes. Yeah. So even if you can just potentially have a chat with him around his communication and language when he's saying don't spend money rather than using the authority piece of what a parent has once said to you, being like, babe, do you want support with this? We've talked about this. You've asked me to keep you accountable. Do you want some support with this? And this is your little cue internally to be like, okay, like he's saying it really beautifully. I can hear you. I see that you're holding me accountable in a good way. What I've asked you to do, you're not being the parent to me. I'm not receiving it in that way. That's a negative language that makes me want to have a little tantrum.
I like that tip.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
I do like it.
Yeah.
Change your language.
Wow.
You thought of yours?
I have.
Okay, I'm ready.
And it mainly came off like the back of what you said before, and it has everything to do around conflict. I hate conflict so much that I will literally put myself like in the worst position just to make everything okay, because I literally hate fighting. I hate any sort of disagreement. Like I need everything to be happy, la-di-da-di-da, 24/7. And I hate when it's not.
Again, the tick of the good girl, the badge of honor of not letting anyone down. Fear of disappointing, that's intuitively what comes forward for me.
Yeah.
It's you have a deeply embedded fear of failure, and there is evidence in the past, someone at some point in your life, potentially between 0 and 7, when you made a mistake, it was shamed, deeply shamed. So it's so shameful that it was embedded, and it could have been the smallest of fuck things, like something that's so trivial and that I would have done to my own children, nothing major, or it could be something really big, right? We won't get into that personal stuff right now. But I feel like there was a time where someone said, you got that wrong and now you're a bad person. And that's stuck with you throughout the rest of your life. So your unconscious mind has gone and sought evidence to confirm that belief now. I'm not good enough because so when I fail, this is how it feels when I fail. This is the disappointment, the person I've let down. This is the shame. This is the guilt that I have to hold when I let anyone down in any way. So I think that might be playing out for you. Does that
Yeah,
feel true
I
for
think
you?
like where it kind of started was actually when I think it may have been triggered when I was younger, but it started when I was older in a past relationship. It was like if there was any conflict, I was so scared to lose that person that I would make it okay. Or then they would be like, oh, well, they were definitely in the wrong, but then they would make me in the wrong. So then I would try and like fix it immediately, be like, okay, yep, sorry, you're right. It's all good. And then that would be like, it's fine.
Traditionally, with a client that may have a similar issue, I would take an intuitive stab at it to suggest that a parent, and I'm not sure right now because I would need more information for context, but if a parent potentially, they gave you exciting things and fun days out and all of the good things when you were really little if you were good. So you're rewarded for being good. And if you were yourself loud, being a kid, running around, making a mess, spilling a cup of milk, it was a really big deal to them. And it might not as in yelling or explosive behaviour, it might have just been, why would you go and do that? That has ruined the morning now. Now we're going to be so late. Like it could have been the language in that parent, right?
Yeah.
And how that's projected out into your life for the rest of your life. So when you got in that relationship, you actually probably may have gotten into that relationship on the basis of you already knew that person was going to treat you that way, and they might have shamed you in similar language that way. Might not have needed to have been big and explosive, but the shaming language attached was similar to the parent that played that out.
Yeah, because I can't, it may have happened when I was young because I can't see any of like my parents, I can't pick anything up besides the good girl thing, rewarding the good girl behavior.
Yep.
But then like with that relationship, I think it would have like just like built up from that because like you said, it's like shaming you for doing the things that are actually your personality. So it's like I'm a very clumsy person. So if I drop something, it's like, oh my God, you dropped it again. Or like, oh my gosh, you always get in everyone's way. You're not taking consideration of anyone else. Like get out of the way, move, like just think. So I feel like every like little thing that I ever do wrong, I'm like, oh shit, someone's going to yell at me or get angry or get annoyed at my personality.
Yeah, my older stepdaughter says sorry for things because she's very clumsy.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you the amount of times at cafes, every water, a glass, I just move glasses away from her now. I'm like, you are not going to move your arms because it's going to spill.
Yeah.
And God bless her. And she was getting to a point, hi Ziggy. I've got Ziggy's on my leg. It gets to a point where she was saying sorry for like me stepping on her foot. And I was like, babe, it's okay. Stop apologizing. And I'm really trying to integrate into her brain that she needs to not be sorry. She'll text me and just be like, hey, Kris, sorry to bother you. I'm like, you're my kid, man. You're not bothering me. Like it's okay to text a person. You don't have to apologize for sending a message. If I don't reply because I'm busy, that's cool. But she has that complex, I think, where it's like you get rewarded for really great behavior, and that's been really encouraged for her as well. But then, maybe when she was a bit younger, it was probably a bit frustrating for us when we were sitting at dinner and like moved everything and the glass still managed to get spilled over. So the limitations may have been cultivated in that as well. And it doesn't have to be big things, babe. It can just be the smallest of shameful language that we attach to our limiting belief, and then we take that forward into life and we look for evidence. So you looked for the relationship that was going to confirm the limiting belief so you could stay not good enough, so you could stay in that limitation.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I do agree with what you said.
Yay.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
feel like for anyone listening, it's a great starter on where to start and to go deeper. And again, I highly, highly recommend to download Kris's ebook. We literally downloaded it. We've had a look at it, and I definitely want to get journaling on it just to like, I feel like our self-awareness is so much better, and we're getting, we're quite, we talk so much about this stuff, but even like it just never ends, this journey. And I think that's what's so beautiful about self-development is that you can just constantly learn about yourself every new age, every new year, season, whatever it is. And even your ebook, like you could go through for where you're at right now and unpack things, and then in 6 months later answer the same questions but get completely different answers, which I think is so beautiful. So hopefully this episode has given you some insight to, go deeper, find more self-awareness to knowing yourself.
Yeah, and I love that you just said that how you can go back to do it in 6 months' time, it would be different, because absolutely, and it should be, and that's why it doesn't go anywhere. But I feel like you two are both such high-level, emotionally intelligent girls. Like you are already at a level where this will only amplify positive things in your life, and that's the next level of self-awareness. New level, new devil. We just continue to grow and evolve, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like when you journal and then you go back and you read what you wrote 6 months ago and you're like, was I okay? Like, what was I even considering? Because you're actually over that 6 months, we are at a point where like it's always growth, and that's what you're changing. So in 6 months' time, you then journal again and it's completely different because you've grown. It's going to happen in another 6 months. You're going to look back to right now, this very moment and think, okay, I'm not the same person anymore. And I think that's why this work is so important, to make sure you are constantly evolving and constantly growing, and just be very honest with yourself.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for
I'm
having
sure
me.
there'll be a part 3.
Yeah, I feel like
We'll be
I
like,
wanna
Kris,
come
we're struggling. We need you back on the line.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always open to that. And I love chatting with you girls. I just think that it's really great to have these big conversations. And I hope that we can normalize a few things for anyone that's going through anything right now. DMs are always open. Reach out if anyone's listening and they're like, fuck, like that was triggering. Like, that's what I'm here to unpack with you. So reach out.
Need compassion with hard truth, Kris is your girl.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please just let everyone know where they can find you again.
At Inside Out with Kris, Kris, everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Love
She has
her own
the same.
podcast too. So if
Yeah.
you need more hard truth, head over.
thanks, girls.
And Tori and I are actually both individual guests on Kris's podcast. So if you want more of us, which is a lot, go over there and listen to our solo episodes as well. But other than that, thank you once again, and we'll all be in your ears next week.
Bye.
Bye. Huge thanks to FODBODs for sponsoring today's episode. Don't forget to use our code RAW15, that's RAW15, which will save you 15% off all products.